Test, test. Yep, now they are. Call to order the Tuesday, June 12th informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. Welcome everyone who's here at Carnegie Town Hall and those of you watching on CityLink Channel 16 and on siouxfalls.org. Glad to have you all here. Councilor Karski's not with us this evening, just as a note, he will be absent. We'll start with staff report from City Clerk Lori Hogstad.
Thank you, Council Chair Erpenbach and City Council members. Just a couple notes on the Carnegie building itself. We're having some landscaping work done out on the property. You may have noticed as you came in. They are putting some drainage pipes along the east side of the building to prevent water from seeping in to the building in the basement, which we've had some issues with in the past. And then along the sidewalk areas, they are taking out about 8 inches of sod and putting in some quartzite blocks. And that's a result of, in the wintertime, using the salt and the chemicals on the sidewalk. It tends to damage that grass along the edge anyway. So we'll have some nice decorative quartzite out there instead. And that should only take another couple days to finish up. And then also our meeting room that we have just adjacent to this room, our council meeting room, or it's a small conference room actually, has just been painted, and we'll have to look for some artwork, and that'll be ready for use. That's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Laura. That's awesome. Could you fill us in? Do you know when the bigger project, the roof, begins?
Well, as far as I know, the roofing will be done in June and the tuck pointing in August. And the roofing will be pretty critical to keeping the water out as well, because it sounds like that some of the runoff is coming not just from the ground, but is coming down off the roof, the way that the roof is settled in. So it will be nice to get that project done.
Great, thank you. Aren't old buildings just delightful?
Yes.
Yes. Any questions for Lori from Council? Seeing none, we'll move on to a report from Land Use Committee. Chairman Rex Rolfing.
Thank you. We held our Land Use Committee meeting last week, and we basically got through the country club land use allowance and allowing them to have off-sale liquor there, and we still weren't exactly set on what their purpose was in that. We had a lot of questions, and some of those will be answered during the time between now and our next land use meeting at the end of this month, whether profit, nonprofit, difference between private and country club, what if there'd be a difference in property taxes. Just a number of things came up during that, and so we asked them to our zoning people to go back and research those things and come back at our next meeting. So we'll have them back at our next meeting, and we'll be, yeah, they're supposed to be back at our next meeting. And so I'm sure they will be back looking for some, giving us some answers. Also, we're going to be looking at our next meeting is the 26th of this month. And it looks like we may be taking up a preliminary, just getting a real basic start on the dog issue at that time. So we'll be taking that on. And just a quick report, we will be having on the 29th, we will be having a urban ag meeting, and we'll be taking up some of the more controversial, if you will, issues dealing with animals on numbers and where and that kind of thing. So if anyone is interested, please come. We will be taking some testimony at the end of that meeting also.
Remind us of the time and the location.
Time is 3:30 at the public main library downtown.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Councilor Rolfing? Good. Thank you. Audit Committee report. Councilor Jamieson.
Thank you. We've got a couple of audit reports that we accepted as a committee. Rich Oaksel is here, though, if I could allow him to come forward. He is our chief auditor.
Please.
Just to summarize a little bit. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, Rich Oaksel, Internal Audit. The committee met last Thursday, reviewed 2 reports, one on overtime and one on the agreement with Wayne Township for the city to provide fire rescue services. I've scheduled those reports for presentation to the council on July 3rd at the Informational. And then we also will be introducing next week's Informational our new auditor. We had a vacancy in the department, and we have hired somebody. They'll be starting next Monday, so you'll get to meet her.
Great.
All right.
We're excited to meet her. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Rich. Anything else from the committee?
If I could just add to that, the one to really note is the Wayne Township agreement for the fire and rescue services. We really did find some interesting agreements there, and it's going to cause the council probably to take action later. The representatives from the township were here, and we had a very good audit report that explained part of the problems that we're dealing with. So look when Rich gives that update that we do need to take action, and the committee is going to be recommending that the council do take action on that issue, just so you don't let it pass under your hats. And then I would give the update on the fiscal committee as well.
Would you please? Thank you.
I did have a chance to visit with Councilor Karski. We had 3 items that we really discussed. First was the citywide fees. It was an update from Rich Oaksel on that topic, but it really led to a further discussion about having all of the fees that the city charges put onto one site within the website of the City of Sioux Falls so that the public can find them easier. And then later on, it would get adopted into an ordinance. When we get through with our recodification, they would be included all into one place so they could all easily be defined and found. City Attorney Fifley, I think, is on top of that, so I look for that to be moving further ahead. We did have a presentation on the CIP budget process and how that works, and they really did a good job of explaining just how many others are involved in the process of approving the CIP. Great involvement from the community. It was a good presentation that's available to anybody if they'd like to see it. But the other big discussion, I think, really turned to the pension design study. The fiscal committee was challenged to come up with a recommendation to the full council, and we couldn't agree on one proposal to recommend, so we were really split in our feelings. We've probably all been asked about it, and we're all working on trying to figure it out. Bill O'Toole is working on another presentation for us with even more details to try to boil it down for all of us because it's very complicated. And if given the opportunity, I think Bill would like to come next week at the Informational because it will be on next week's agenda for us to come up with a resolution recommending what we should do. So if we have the time, I think we'd really be benefited if we had Bill do that. The other part was, I think it might be really beneficial as well to include Dave Bixler, our budget analyst, into the discussions. And I know Dave's been working on it anyway, but I think if the whole council gave them our encouragement to help boil it down for us as well, because the impact of this pension plan is going to be tremendous to the council and our budgeting and all aspects of what we do. So that's exactly why we hired Dave, was to help boil it down for us. So if I could share that with the rest of the group and maybe get a consensus that yes, let's let Dave loose on this topic with Bill O'Toole, would that be acceptable?
Councilor Anderson.
After watching the fiscal committee meeting and everything, Greg, I guess my question is, the options that are available, have those been passed on to the council members so that we can look them over too until we get that presentation next week?
If I could, I think the Bill O'Toole's objective is to get it onto a sheet for us so we can like you say, have it right in front of us. But I think he's working on that. I don't know if he sent it already today, but look for it today or tomorrow. I don't know if Bill is here, but look for that to come very fast, so we have as much time as possible to consider the options.
Other questions for Councilor Jameson? Then I would just take the privilege of asking the clerks. I know that we just approved next week's informational meeting agenda, but we will add Bill. Let's add him toward the end so that we have significant time to spend with him, and we'll go from there. Other questions either regarding Audit Committee or Fiscal Committee?
I do
Councilor
have
Aguilar.
a question, Madam Chair. Our 5 o'clock meetings with Minnehaha start next week.
And is it scheduled?
The last notices, I saw that we are scheduled for a Minnehaha County meeting, so that gives us 1 hour prior to that.
What I will do is beg Bill's indulgence. We will recess this meeting to meet with Minnehaha County next Monday, and then we will come back and meet with Bill.
Okay.
If that's all right with the group. Okay, thank you. That will be our plan when if Councilor Jameson, if you're going to contact Bill, or would you prefer that I contact him?
I'll contact him back.
Okay, and just let him know that that's what we'll do. We'll stop at 5 o'clock, meet with Minnehaha County, and then come back.
Perfect, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your reports. Anything else on any of those committee meetings? I'm going to open it up for open discussion before I open it to the full council, I have invited Minnehaha County Commissioner Dick Kelly to come and speak with us just for a few minutes about the 4th of July fireworks show. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you. It's always fun to come back. It was 17 years ago that we had our first meeting here, and well, not in this building, but time flies, I guess. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, the J.C.'s came in, and they were hat in hand, and they needed money for the fireworks, and something they should have been working on all year, obviously. They pushed off until the last, evidently. The billions for the last 3 years have funded, but they, I think, are at a point where they're saying, we're not going to do this alone. They made a good presentation, and so we floated a proposal to give them $5,000, kind of a one-year only deal, but to help. After that, and I don't know whether they had been working on it, I imagine they had, they went to the casino down in Iowa, and they agreed to do a promotion program, and I don't know how much, Greg and I kind of disagree on how much they're going to raise on that, but they may raise enough to do the whole thing, or they may still come up a little bit short. And anyway, I think our thinking on, we've been working together on a lot of things jointly, and I think things have improved in the last couple of years significantly. The meeting thing that we've set up and everything else. But, we discussed when we got, and there's a little bit of a need for patriotism in this country right now, and there's too often too many things that just go wrong. And you're either got to be politically correct and not do something, and I guess that's kind of, I know you're supposed to deal from the head and not the heart, but occasionally the heart wins out, and I think that's kind of what happened when we did the 5,000. My intent when we were talking about it was that it would be a match. If they could come down to the mayor and get the city to cough up $5,000, then we would do it too. Well, as we passed it, it was simply we gave them a $5,000 grant just for the 1 year. Probably not without some criticism, because our employees have had a pretty rough year too. So we stepped out a little bit there. But I think the important thing was it's very valuable to our citizens. We don't want this fireworks deal to go away, and somehow they've got to change how they're doing this thing and get some businesses to, it's not a governmental function, but occasionally sometimes you have to provide the seed money. I originally started out through the mayor's office, and he kind of pushed it off to you guys, and which is fair because you control the purse strings. But there's there's a significant impact on the city because obviously it's a lot of the residents of Sioux Falls that go out and watch that free show. And I'm just here, I'm here as chair of the commission, but also, you know, as a citizen or just begging. But that the city would see fit to come up with either 5,000, maybe, you know, even 2,500. I think it would send a message that yes, we think this thing is important, and we can very quietly just tell them, listen, you guys have got to get this thing together. You've got to get some more parties involved in this thing for next year. But at least it gets them through this year. So I wish you'd give it some serious consideration. Obviously, the 4th of July is coming up pretty fast. And that's my pitch.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I appreciate you coming down. Questions or comments for Commissioner Kelly?
That's dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Other open discussion from council members? Councilor Staggers?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, I'm going to be introducing an amendment to the ordinance where we're going to spend $4 million. My amendment, very simply, deletes $725,000 from the Greenway project. The two projects that are going to be deleted will be with the water feature and also the steps into the Big Sioux River. The amendment also provides that money will be going to the streets, and that would be used for the purchase of right-of-way. So the question might arise as to why I'm proposing this amendment. Well, there have been a number of people that have talked to me about, is this really an appropriate expenditure of city tax money? Spending this on a water feature in front of the Hilton and steps in front of the Hilton. So that's the reason I'm going to be introducing this amendment. Now, to be able to talk about this amendment tonight, of course, there's going to have to be a second. So I would certainly appreciate one of the council members seconding this tonight. And if you have any questions, please just talk with me after the informational meeting. And also, I will have the amendment on your desk before the council meeting tonight.
Great, thank you. Questions for Councilor Staggers at this point? Other open discussion. Thank you, Councilor Staggers. Councilor Anderson.
I just wanted to say that after the informational meeting, there will be a public services meeting. On the agenda, we will be reviewing the naming rights ordinance and getting an update from Director Darren Smith. We'll also be looking at distracted driving ordinances alternatives. Concealed weapon ordinance discussion will start. And also, we will be looking at revisions of recycling standardization. And Bob Capel, the environmental manager, will be giving that presentation.
Great, thank you. That will start 15 minutes after this meeting adjourns. Other open discussion from council members? Councilor Staggers?
Yes, I think everybody on the council received an email from Scott Earsman, who has the South Dakota blog, talking about voting, specifically about the constant change in where people go to vote. You know, we had, last time around, we had the neighborhood voting areas. Before that, we had the centralized voting in 12 different locations. And it seems like it's going back and forth, and he has a concern. I know many citizens have a concern, and I know many of us on the city council have that concern that we've got to get this straight so that people know where to vote. It is extremely confusing. And so I mentioned that I would bring this up because there's also conversation about if something is not done in the very near future, there could be a petition drive to try to set this in ordinance. And so that's what I'm doing right now, is just simply bringing this up and trying to further the conversation about this. Does anybody have any comments about that?
Comments or questions for Councilor Staggers? Councilor Jamieson.
I would add to the discussion as well that during the election process for myself, we used the super precincts, and I had a lot of questions about where they should go to vote. And I sense that there is a discomfort in moving from place to place and not having a committed single place that they always vote. I heard it firsthand. I mean, I was up for election, so a lot of people were asking, and of course I was telling them where they should go and how they should vote. But I just wanted to add that I was certainly a part of that discussion, and I would have to concur that I would agree that we need to standardize these locations. Not so much on the threat that there would be a petition drive to do it, just because it makes sense. And I don't know the next steps to take to deliver that message. Is it with Jason Gant? Is it with the school board? Or who is it? I really don't know.
Councilor Aguilar.
Well, I would think that we would have to, as was suggested in the email, get all three bodies of government together, the school district, the county, and the city. Because even if we were to, with our election, put it in ordinance that we would either use the precincts or super precincts, that if the county or the school district didn't go along with us, that would mean that we could no longer do elections with the school district. So I would suggest that we have our city clerk spearhead the discussion with the other entities and then report back to the council.
Thank you. Good suggestion. City Clerk Hogstead is nodding her head, saying definitely. Okay, thank you for jumping into that. Councilor Anderson.
I think you do need to add the state also. At the last election, the Jason Gant was at a few of the polling precincts, and there was a lot of confusion. I do agree. When I was voting myself, it was, confusion on where you could be, what location you could vote on. Even if people knew they could vote at any location, they weren't sure where the locations were at. So I do agree that it should be the three entities, but I think we do need to include the state on this and get everything settled.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? The chair would just add that, remember, city elections only happen every 2 years. We really have a pretty small part in that whole conversation. Certainly, I appreciate that Lori will jump in and help us with that, but keep in mind that we are one player in a pretty large game. So thank you for your input. It's all well taken. I think that we're kind of working through a transition because we want people to vote. We want it to be easy, but we're just trying new things. So thank you, Councilor Staggers. Any other open discussion? I do have a couple of things for us. The main one, Dave Bixler, could you come up to the podium for me, please? I know that I emailed you at one point about this, but didn't really follow up. We have an issue with some scheduling with work sessions regarding the budget in August. We have a work session scheduled for August 8th. And if I could just preface this by saying at the same time, August 8th and 9th, there are legislative committee meetings with the South Dakota Municipal League, and we have said that we are very interested in being active in the legislative process in Pierre. That's where that starts, is August 8th and 9th in Pierre at the South Dakota Municipal League. So, Dave, can you work a schedule for us so that we're not having a work session on August 8th and so that folks can, some of our members can get up for those committee meetings in Pierre? Have you looked at that? Do you have any options for us yet, or do you want to just do it by email?
I'll do it by email, but I'd also like to follow up on the 7th. Are we still going to maintain that meeting date?
Yes, we will maintain the August 7th meeting because the committee meetings don't start until the 8th. There are some on the 8th and some on the 9th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. So we'll be good to meet on the 7th.
All right, I will send out an email and get that arranged.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions about that week? Most of us on the council have assignments to committees. We also have staff members that are assigned to specific committees. I'm going to be kind of pushy about it and kind of lay out that expectation that if we are going to be as involved as we want to be, that's where we need to be, is in those committee meetings talking about policy and talking about things that matter to municipalities across the state. So make time in your schedule for that. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. That's everything that I have. Anything else that has come to mind? Seeing none, I'm going to move on with our presentations. We'll be hearing from Sam Trebelcock about the on-street bicycle ordinance update. Sam, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sam Trebilcock, City of Sioux Falls Planning Office. I do have a presentation for you. It follows very closely with a handout also that many of you I had at the podium. What I'd like to be able to do is kind of take you through what the process we've looked at in updating our on-street bicycle ordinances and methods to help people, motorists and bicycles, share the road. Give you a little bit of a background. Really what we're trying to do is improve the safety of bicycling in the street. That was our goal all along in this process. And we started this out, discussed some options to educate motorists and bicyclists about the correct manner to bicycle in the street and safely share the road. In 2011, the Bicycle Committee worked to put together a bicycle education safety course to teach police officers, city staff, and all the citizens about Sioux Falls bicycle laws. There seemed to be some confusion about what was required. What does everybody need to do when coming to a bicycle, or what does a bicycle need to do when they're in the street? Our finding was that current city bicycle ordinances were not very clear and not up to date to allow bicyclists to safely share the road. And I should add that what's really important in this process is the idea of predictability. Everybody has to know what the other is going to do. What the bicyclist is going to do needs to know what the motorist is going to do. The motorist needs to know what the bicyclist is going to do. If you don't know that, that's where problems are created very quickly. So we want to create that awareness. In part, what we're trying to do then is our strategies to update these ordinances kind of as a catalyst to educate the bicyclists and the motorists, all citizens alike, in the proper methods to bicycle and to share the road. So then in late 2011 and 2012, the Bicycle Committee updated bicycle ordinances, started looking at that. How could we do that to clarify and update? Again, they're already current ordinances. We just wanted to clarify those, and in some cases, some of the ordinances that are really outdated, we wanted to look at bringing them up to date. First of all, where do I ride in the street? Where does a bicycle ride in the street? Current law, a person driving a bicycle at normal traffic speed, speed of traffic shall ride as close as practicable to the right-hand curb except under several situations, and there's exceptions after that. One of the confusing aspects is, what does that word practicable mean? A lot of people define that as also possible, but it's not the same thing. With the exceptions in mind, you don't necessarily have to ride as close to the right-hand curb as possible when there's maybe a parked car. Obviously, you can't drive right through the parked car. You have to move over. And so there's circumstances like that, or maybe the curb is broken up, so you can't obviously ride right next to the curb. But it became confusing what those situations would do to allow them to move anything beyond close to the right-hand curb. So we changed that to two distinct situations to clarify. Number one, a bicycle and motor vehicle are to share the lane, and we define that in section 4077C1. And then number two, another circumstance is a bicycle may take the lane when there's not enough room in that lane for it to be shared. And that does happen if the lane is too narrow, there's not enough room for them to pass on the left, or there might be a parked car or something like that they have to go around. So those are the two situations we want to clarify, because in some cases a bicycle does need to do that. Next, how much room should I give a bicycle to safely pass? Current is a safe passing distance. It says the driver of any vehicle overtaking another vehicle proceeding in the same direction shall pass at a safe distance to the left thereof. Our issue was, what exactly is that? How much is that? Is it this much, or is it, an entire lane? What is it? What is a safe passing distance? What a lot of states around the country are doing, and other cities around the country, is that they have brought forward 3-foot passing distance as that safe passing distance. So the driver of a motor vehicle shall overtake a bicyclist proceeding in the same direction, shall allow a bicyclist at least a 3-foot separation between the right side of the driver's vehicle, including all mirrors or other projections, and the left side of the bicycle. So that's what we're bringing forward, clarifying what a safe passing distance is, which is already in law. Where do I ride on a one-way road with 2 or more lanes? I'll give you an example. We instituted a sharrow on a couple places on one-lane streets, multi-lane roads, Dakota Avenue downtown and also Main Avenue. We put those sharrows on the left-hand side of the street because less people will open the doors there because single-person occupant vehicles. So we did that, but then we also found that it was actually against the law to do that. So to have only on one-lane streets, you could also be as far to the left as possible. So that's one clarification we added and update. Oops. Also, bicycle lanes and right turn lanes in some cities around the country. When there is a bicycle lane, and we're only suggesting we do this with existing bike lanes, where there's not enough lane when you come to have a bike lane and a dedicated right turn lane, that they could actually share that. And they're doing that in other places around the country, just like this picture shows. The law would allow for that. What happens when a signal won't change when I'm on a bicycle? Well, currently, bicyclists must just turn right on red. That's the only recourse we have. What we then are proposing, and this really is patterned off the state of Minnesota's law that they have right now. New ordinance section would allow a bicyclist to proceed through an unchanging signal, but adhering to some strict standards. And I listed them all here. I'm not going to go through every single one, but essentially you have to wait a significant amount of time to know that it's not going to change. And then also you have to make sure that you adhere to the right-of-way standards. So you can't just go through and there's a car coming. You essentially would treat it as a stop sign then. So that would give the ability, that does happen in some areas, and because the bikes are pretty small on the amount of metal they have, that does happen from time to time. Can two bicycles ride side by side within the same lane? Under current law in the City of Sioux Falls, no, they do not have to. We found as we researched it, a lot of communities do allow it, again, under circumstances when there is no traffic behind you. When there is traffic behind you, you need to go to single file. I noticed that as I was coming out of my house last night, there was 2 people on our local street riding side by side. I thought about yelling at them, do you know that's against the law? Well, they were on a local street. There was nothing certainly wrong with it. There was no traffic coming up from behind them. It also gives the bicyclist the ability to commute or communicate what's going on. So we think it's something that will be helpful. One other thing, people will say that, I forget how to signal a right-hand turn on a bicycle. What exactly is that? Well, right now it is this, and it is the left hand. We're not suggesting we actually change that and get rid of that, because you actually, if you don't have signals on a car, that's how you would do it. What we're suggesting is as an alternative that you would be able to use this also as a right-hand turn signal on a bicycle, which makes more sense to think people as they're on a bike, they could do that. So again, what we're trying to do is just clarify a lot of the laws out there or update them to some of the standards that are going on around the country. This is anything that's that were made up. This is things that we see going on around the country, and also makes a lot of sense to us to help create a lot more safety. And also this, we're hoping, creates the situation where we can start informing people about the safe ways to bicycle on the street. I don't think a lot of people understand that, and we hear this quite often, bicyclists do, that why are you on the street? You're not allowed on the street. Of course, we also hear on the other side of it that bicyclists will hear, why are you on the sidewalk? You shouldn't be on the sidewalk. I think people only think we should be on the trail. Well, how do you get to the trail? We want to create situations to bring forward the ability for more people the independence to get around town. A lot of people use a bike. That's how they get to their job. That's how they get to where they need to go. And for some people, that's how they want to, you see it in Sioux Falls now, that's how they want to get around for sustainability, for their exercise. I think it's important then that we look at that for those reasons. So we hope that this can help act as a catalyst to get that word out. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Sam? Councilor Staggers?
Sam, I know you spent a lot of time on this ordinance, but how realistic is this? What I mean by that is if we have a motorist here in Sioux Falls, or even a motorist coming from outside of Sioux Falls, they could care less about this bicycle ordinance, because what they're going to be doing is driving down the street, they see a bicycle, and they're going to try to make sure they don't hit the bicycle. They're not going to worry about 3 feet or any of that kind of stuff. And likewise with the bicyclists, they really don't care if they signal right this way or, this. I mean, who cares? Everybody knows what that's all about. So, I mean, I think a lot of time has been put into this, but really, is anybody going to really care a whole lot about this?
Well, I'm going to get back to why we did this.
Okay.
We were looking at trying to educate the people of Sioux Falls, not only that, but the police officers too, so that they understood what the rules were too. And as we came back down to it, we were like, hey, we understand why there's confusion, because it's confusing. So we want the rules of the game, everybody on the same playing field. So for education purposes, I don't think as a city it would be, and we were advised by our attorneys that it wasn't a good idea to start telling people this is how you should do things, even though we couldn't make that clear in law. So that's what we're trying to do. This is what the law clearly says, so this is what everybody should expect when you're on the road. Again, the predictability aspect, which is so very important.
Yeah, but nobody's going to be taking tests over this ordinance to see if they know all about the ordinance and the rules and so forth.
Well, we'd certainly love to have some of this move forward, as part of driver's education and everything. That's part of the education process, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Entman.
I think it is good. I think I've received a couple of emails from people in the bicycling community specifically concerning this and how they appreciate the efforts to upgrade this and bring it up to modern times. I know when I was in school and the police officers came, and I think I can remember that far back, but when the police officers came and educated us on bicycle safety, it was about the law, and as such, all of us, whether they're youth that we're training to be very aware of the law or whatever, there has to be law to govern people. And in this case, it was a case where these are the bicycle laws. You have to be respectful of the cars that are around you, the pedestrians that are there. Please follow the laws. And I think that it is good information to bring forward as we go in the future. And I do support this. I think you did a great job, and I'd like to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? Councilor Jameson.
Thank you. It wasn't that long ago, I think we just removed an ordinance or changed the ordinance requiring a fee to get licensed. And what's kind of puzzling to me is that, a bike is considered a vehicle. And that is the premise that allows them to ride on the streets and use the streets versus the sidewalks. But the sidewalk is by far a safer place for these people to be, and at least from my opinion, and less used by people walking and more by people riding a bike. If we've taken the distinction of the requirement to get a license to actually own a bike, are we actually now removing the real truth that it is a vehicle? I know all of us probably would assume it is a vehicle, and that's why it can't be on the sidewalk, but it seems like we might be crossing over here a little bit and allowing them and giving them the right and ownership to this space on the road is actually should then, frankly, require a license. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know any place that does require license of bicycles. I mean, I think at an early age that we do learn to ride the bike, but certainly it's important, and that's what we're trying to do is to educate everybody, not only that, but the motorists, but certainly it's true that the bicyclist many times has to take that ownership about where they need to ride. You see way too many bicyclists, for instance, riding through stop signs or stoplights and riding down the wrong side of the street. again, that creates the, unpredictability that we can't have for safe. And that's part of the reason we're doing this. In terms of the sidewalk, what we usually find is for kids that are learning, I think it's a great place to learn, but we have to be really careful at those intersections. At intersections, the car just does not see the bike. And many of our most significant accidents have occurred when they're on the sidewalk. In fact, we've had a couple of deaths over the past 6 or 7 years because the cars are not seeing the bicyclists on the sidewalk. So what we looked at as we did this, should there be some changes to on the sidewalk too. We decided not to. What it requires, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but when you come to an intersection, you must stop. The reason for that is so that you can start to get eye contact with that motorist. Because if you don't have eye contact with the motorist, they probably don't see you. And so that's what we typically try to say on the sidewalk, is that you got to be really careful. You can't be traveling too fast. But yeah, you can bike on the sidewalk. I think any bicyclist here would say every so often, I'll jump on the sidewalk, but boy, I have to be careful about being seen.
Thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, Sam, I don't know, maybe I missed something, but is there a penalty for not adhering to these ordinances?
There is. It's the same. We didn't change anything with the penalty. It would be a moving violation. I don't know, Keith, it would be the same as it was. Is it a general city ordinance violation? Yeah.
Which would be what, $25 or $50 or?
It's 200 plus 3.
200.
Keith Allen signed with the city attorney's office saying 200. Yeah.
Whoa.
$200.
Up to 200. Okay, up to.
Up to 200, we got that?
And or 30 days in jail, isn't it? And or 30 days in jail?
That I'm not sure.
Getting the nod, yes? No?
I'm going to have to watch where I ride my bike, aren't I?
Yeah. Well, honest person that walks on the sidewalk, stay off the sidewalks, please. Councilor Anderson is next.
Sam, I guess I agree with most of this and everything. One comment you've made that I don't totally agree with is where bikes are on the sidewalks and you're saying that the motorists don't see them. Part of that is true, but a lot of times too, it's that the motorist doesn't know what that bicyclist is going to do coming off that corner.
Agree with that.
And that's where I think a lot of the problems happen is you do see that bicyclist, but once they get to that corner, you don't know if they're going to turn. And with those curb cutouts, it's so easy now just to fire across the street that it makes it a lot more difficult for the motorist. The other thing is, when you put this together, what other bicycle-friendly cities did you look at in order to come up with this ordinance, or did you look at any other cities?
Well, a lot of this, it wasn't exactly patterned up, but Colorado did a lot of these same sort of things. But there are a lot of cities that, in fact, I wrote that down. There's 20 states that have the 3-foot law. There's 13 other cities, 9 that are in Texas. Texas did it that way. The cities did because the governor of Texas vetoed the 3-foot law in Texas, so the cities came through and did that way. Boise, Idaho also has it. We look a lot with Austin, Texas, is another one. But
2 cities that keep coming up over the last 3 years for me, looking at bicycle ordinances and bicycle-friendly cities, are Minneapolis and Seattle. And it seems like things are working quite well up in the cities, using bicycle lanes and the ordinances that they've come up with too.
Good, thank you. Councilor Aguilar.
Sam, could you remind us who participated in forming the ordinance changes?
It was our bicycle committee, which is a number of bicycle advocates that we work with. We meet maybe 3-4 times a year. It was an offshoot of a committee that was formed to update our bicycle plan. And we continually meet over the time to update that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam? Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, just a quick question. Sam, is it illegal to ride on the sidewalk downtown?
you know, there's only a very few places, and it's asked, you know, there's a lot of people that believe it's illegal to ride on the sidewalk. I'm not sure where that comes from, but the only place there's a couple of different places, and it's downtown on Phillips Avenue only from, I think, 9th to 14th. There's also one place over on 8th Street, that is, but very few places.
Okay, good.
Essentially, it's places where you know, the buildings are really close to the sidewalk.
Good. Thank you, Sam. First reading is tonight at the 7 o'clock meeting, correct? And we will set a hearing for a second reading, and public input will be taken at that second reading. So I'd invite folks, if you want to have input on that, to pay attention to when that date is. We're going to move on. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate your input and your presentation. Move on to the Event Center project update by the Mayor's Administration. We're opening with Director of Planning and Building Services, Mike Cooper. Welcome, Mr. Cooper.
Good afternoon, Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. I will kick off our monthly update for the City Council and for the citizens of Sioux Falls to provide you with some more very exciting and informative information. So we'll start out with, are you going to move these forward or should I? Okay. One of the things that we recently provided to the City Council was a recommendation from a selection committee that was formed to provide next direction in terms of working with a potential facility manager as well as a food and beverage service provider for the new event center as well as for the Arena Convention Center Orpheum Theater. As we mentioned, the selection committee is recommending that we would begin contract negotiations with SMG for facility management and for Ovations for food and beverage services. Those contract negotiations are still expected to begin shortly in the month of June. We will be using our Crossroads Consulting Group to assist those negotiations, as well as outside counsel, in addition to the City Attorney's Office, outside counsel with the Woods Fuller Law Firm. We also talked during that selection committee recommendation that we want to have some type of a communication process for the City Council during the negotiation. The negotiations are going to be done privately because it does involve a contract, but we would like to continue to talk about with our attorneys, with the City Council leadership, what is going to be the best way to provide briefings or inform the Council as these negotiations move forward. What type of updates would be beneficial, because obviously the target is to complete those negotiations and bring forward the contracts to the City Council by September. And we certainly want to have you feel comfortable when those are presented, that you are knowledgeable, that you understand how they were structured, and that you would support those contracts. So we'll have those discussions as we move forward in the process. We're still hoping that we can do this within the next 90 days or so. Another aspect that we're working on is the coordination of parking. Mark Cotter will be talking to you a little bit more today about the construction timeline, but we know that once construction begins, that we're going to be losing some of our existing campus parking. So we are putting together a committee made up of users of Howard Wood Field, the Convention Center, the Arena, as well as the Sheraton Hotel, so that we can begin talking about ideas for dealing with parking during upcoming events. We know that this coming fall, there's going to be some very significant football events, the President's Bowl, the Dakota Bowl, the USD, North Dakota football game. There's also some major music events that will happen this fall. And then going into the winter months, we'll have the Summit League tournament coming back to Sioux Falls again. So we want to put together some great ideas for providing additional parking, looking at the possibility of off-site shuttles. There's a number of parking facilities that we have close by to the existing Arena and Convention Center parking lot. We're also going to investigate potential ideas for not only tailgating, but also for things like pregame entertainment areas, so that before the football game, we could potentially have designated locations for food vendors or games or entertainment and make that more of an attraction rather than spreading people out all over the parking areas. So we're going to work with our committee members to put together ideas zeroing in on these upcoming fall events. We're also going to be having another neighborhood meeting next week on the 21st of June at the Convention Center to really serve two purposes. One is to continue dialogue with the neighborhood about potential development opportunities around the Convention Center and arena area. And then also we're going to have Mortensen Construction attending this meeting to give a little more input about the actual construction timeline. And when Mark Cotter presents his briefing to you today, he can explain a little bit more about what Mortensen might be presenting at that neighborhood meeting. So that is scheduled for June 21st at the Convention Center from 5 to 7 p.m. And there'll be more information going out to make the public aware of that timeline. Another step in the process is that because this event center is located within a planned development zoning district, we are taking what we call a final development plan to the next planning commission, which is July 11th, for approval. And that final development plan is really looking at where we're at with the design of the building, the parking lot, and then essentially allowing the community to get one final look at it to see where we're at in terms of the progress of the design before we move into the next step, which is the site demolition and first phases of actual construction. And then once the Planning Commission gives their approval to the final development plan, the next step internally will be going through what we call plan review with building services and engineering and fire inspection, and then beginning the actual permitting for site excavation, footings and foundation, and then the structure and finishes as we move through that timeline. So that involves many, many steps and a lot of detail and review as we go through that. One of the very exciting announcements that we just heard about recently was that the South Dakota High School Activities Association board agreed that because of the new event center, the location in Sioux Falls with the arena, that this would be a great opportunity to try something brand new for South Dakota. And that would be to have a combined boys and girls basketball tournament. In this case, it will be the AA tournament for the very first time that would ever be done in this state. We have had communications with Wayne Carney about this, and we did put in a proposal that we believe that in 2016 we would be able to accommodate a major tournament like that. So the board of directors has given their okay. And again, as we talked about the dynamics of having the new event center connected to the convention center and the arena, that you could have concurrent events. Well, here we are, folks. This is going to be the first opportunity to see that actually happen with that combined AA tournament in 2016. And so as the media reported about that, the emphasis again was on the fact that we can do the combined tournaments in Sioux Falls, and we think we're going to really be able to put on a fantastic show for the community, and working with the Sports Authority, with the CVB, with the hotel industry and others, that we believe this is going to be a very successful tournament, and it's going to pave the way for others like this to come into the future so that we can look at additional opportunities to utilize the arena and the convention center and the event center for more concurrent events and activities. The next presenter is going to be Darren Smith with Community Development and Public Parking.
Well, I won't need this. I only get one slide, so I'll leave it for the next person. Darren Smith, Director of Community Development. I am here to give a couple brief updates under the category of sponsorship and naming rights. The first one, the title sponsor process advancing. So all of you know, earlier this year we launched the title sponsor naming rights process via a request for expression of interest process. And I would just say that we are exactly where we thought we would be at this point, or where we would hope to be, and so it is advancing as planned. I would also take the opportunity to restate our goal, which has been and continues to be, we would like to have a title sponsor naming rights partner agreement that can be brought to the City Council for your consideration and approval in time for the groundbreaking event that we plan to have in August. So we feel we're still on track for that, and more to come. On a related update on a related process, the professional sales support, the RFP process you see above, Legend Sales and Marketing. So again, I think all of you know that several weeks ago, actually back in late February, we launched another process, a request for proposals seeking potentially a naming rights sales professional. So those firms who specialize in selling event centers, sports stadiums, those types of public facilities. We issued an RFP looking for those services, and we had 4 firms respond to that RFP with proposals in March. We did interviews and heard presentations from those 4 firms in early April. The evaluation committee that was established and conducted those interviews and heard those presentations was comprised of myself, Don Kearney, Director of Parks and Recreation, Tracy Turbach, Director of Finance, City Councilor Rex Rolfing, and longtime local realtor Linda Billers. So it was a good group and a good process, and the outcome of that process was that Legend Sales and Marketing did score highest in the process. We were very impressed by them. And so at the same time, we made sure those firms knew that we wanted to advance through some of these other event center related processes, namely the facility management and food and beverage selection process, before we would make a decision on naming rights. So as you know, we've done our part in that process and concluded that recently. And so we have made the decision very recently that we would like to award a contract to Legend Sales and Marketing to basically work with us and this new facility, and in fact all 3 public facilities, the current arena and convention center as well, to sell those facilities and be part of a long-term agreement that we would have with them. So that will be an agreement that we will start negotiating very soon, and our intention would be to bring that again for your consideration and approval, most likely in July, possibly August, so in the coming several weeks. One other quick update. With Legends, we've also recently entered into an agreement with Legend Sales and Marketing, an abbreviated agreement for $22,500 to become engaged immediately in the title sponsor naming rights process. I've said repeatedly from the beginning of this process, and some of you will recall that I've said at some point in this process that we've launched and managed to this point that we will very likely desire professional support and assistance at some point to help successfully complete this process. And we feel we are at that point. We've got the firm that we would like to hire long term, and so we brought them on board immediately, and they are under contract and working with us now. And next, I believe, is Mark Cotter.
Good afternoon, council members. I will give you an update on the activities that are taking place on the bricks and mortar side of this project, if you will, the design and the construction. Again, that we've talked in the past, there's a very well laid out schedule. The project remains on track, and a number of activities are currently underway. 2 of the key updates that we gave you last month were that the 100% design development drawings had been complete. They were sitting right here. There was about 800 plan sheets and nearly 2,000 specification sheets. Those were completed along with showing you the 4D model of how this facility will be constructed. That model continues to get refined as the elements get identified that will ultimately go into this facility. On a parallel track, we also received the best value proposals, and those are understandably probably the 6 most complicated and critical aspects of this building. It's the mechanical, plumbing, it's the electrical, HVAC, fire suppression, architectural precast, and stadia precast, or the structural precast. Those have been received and are currently being reviewed. Once we had those proposals, then we could launch into updating the comprehensive estimate of the facility. And we have a very nice, high-quality facility that's on budget. And in addition, inside our current budget, Mortensen still maintains their $4.5 million contingency, and the city maintains their $5 million contingency at this point as we get very close to starting construction. One of the things that we've adopted over recent years is that we really like to reach out to other entities that have built similar facilities so we can either do peer reviews or just truly lessons learned so we can accelerate our learning curve and implement some of those best practices that they've done. Recently, we've toured 3 sites. The Lincoln Haymarket Arena, we did a day trip to Lincoln and wanted to really look at their site logistics, and also they're working with Mortensen Construction, and so we wanted to have a dialogue on how that contracting aspect with construction manager at risk was working. We also then recently toured 2 facilities up in the Twin Cities area. There's a new Radisson Blue hotel that's going up right on the Mall of America campus. We thought that was a good fit as they are tying into an existing facility just like the City of Sioux Falls is with our convention center. And then also we went to Target Field to really look at the finishes of Target Field, everything from the flooring to the ceiling aspects, and also the wayfind signage. So we'll take you through that. As the project team moves forward, schedule's a big part of this, and so we start everything with on time, on budget, and finish this project with 0 punch list items. Okay, just a couple of pictures from the Lincoln project. They're essentially 1 year ahead of us. They have a site that's just a little bit, they have a facility that's just a little bit larger than ours. Theirs is a 15,000 seat facility. They are implementing some of the same aspects that we are with just-in-time delivery and a very organized site logistics plan, and again just took away some good lessons learned of what they've learned in the past year that we can implement immediately. Radisson Blue Hotel on the left, those are the escalators. In reference to our project, they have about a 25-foot vertical escalator. We'll have about an 18-foot vertical escalator. But just some of the coordination aspects, the size of some of these elements that will go into the building, critical just with utilizing cranes and ordering those materials at a respective time. We really had the ability on this site to see everything from pouring concrete to in the upper floors of the new hotel, wallpaper was being hung. And so there's just such an engine of activity that happens and gets coordinated into this size and scale of these projects that we'll also experience in our event center that we wanted to have first sight hand. The picture on the right just really shows you how tight of a site that they have, but also that they're connecting into an existing facility, the Mall of America. They also, right underneath this facility, has probably one of the busiest loading docks. It's Macy's loading dock that had to stay open and throughout the construction, and so just some unique elements that you have to account for when you're building next to an existing facility. And then last, again, Target Field, really wanted to have a good sense of finish levels from flooring to ceiling textures and everything in between. Also off to the right, just to locate a spot within the facility that really communicates the journey that the Target Field facility went through. And then on the right, we really wanted to have a good sense of the wayfind signage. Jeff Hazard with Coke Hazard was taking a number of pictures as he and his team are really charged with the interiors of this building, making sure that it's very clear but also very tasteful. So. Okay, construction is about to begin. We're about 6 weeks away from really setting up and seeing activity start. I know the picture has a lot of detail. Just want you to see that there is a good site logistics plan that's been laid out, good ingress and egress into the facility. There'll be fencing. There's aspects where we've identified that areas of the ground have to be strengthened to support these large cranes that will be used with the duration of the project. And then also when non-events are happening, where the skilled tradesmen can park. And so just a number of those aspects will happen. The control perimeter fence is scheduled to go up in third week of July, and then we'll really start to see a number of aspects start to happen. To set up the site, they call those site services, and that's everything from garnering quotes from local fence companies, local solid waste companies that can handle the construction demolition debris, all the way down to the portable toilets that will be used on the site. And so there's a number of those site services that Mortensen today is already sourcing for quotes so they can be ready to go to the field third week in July. And then the sanitary sewer extension project that we showed you the alignment last week starts on the north side of Russell Street, progresses west, and then into the site that was recently awarded to Kemp Construction, a local strong underground firm. It's just over $1 million contract, and that is scheduled to start just after the start of August. Okay, my last slide. In the next 60 days, as Mike and Darren had mentioned, that there will be a public meeting for the neighborhood and the public on June 21st, and we'll be talking about a number of aspects with the project regarding parking and also what they can expect being close to this type of a construction project. Mortensen Construction will be down here. I expect that we'll also show them the model as it relates to the schedule and be there to answer questions that they may have. There is a bid package today that's out on the street. That includes site preparation, rock removal, foundations, a portion of the site utilities that are between the proposed event center and Howard Wood Field, as well as the build of McCart parking lot. And so by the end of June, contractors will turn in their bids for the package that's currently out on the street. We will have a webcam that people can go to at any time on the Sioux Falls website and observe this construction that is scheduled to go live in July. Site work will start late July. Again, one of the first aspects you'll see is the control perimeter fence go up. And then right now we're tentatively planning the groundbreaking in August. That concludes my portion of the update. Thank you. I will turn it over to Tracy Turbach, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. I'm wrapping up the presentation today with a slide on the project financials. As Mark's part of the presentation indicated, the project has progressed to the point where I think it's appropriate as part of our regular monthly updates to include an update on the financial activity associated with the project. And so the slide that you have before you now is set up as in the form of a sources and uses of funds. At the top of the top portion of the slide indicates the sources of funding for the project. You can see currently the sources for the $115 million of the public commitment for this project. You folks are aware that we did have a bond sale in March. That bond sale raised 102 of the $115 million in public funds for the project. We are anticipating another $12.5 million of funds to be raised for the project. I anticipate that there will be another bond sale that will occur prior to the end of this year to raise the balance of funds needed. And then, of course, the small amount of sales tax fund cash that is in our budget for this year. So that rounds out the public project funding of $115 million. So that constitutes the sources of public funding for the project. The project expenditures, something I think all of you are keenly interested in as well, are made up of a variety of sources. You can see the program management and development costs. That's primarily for the, at least at this point, primarily for the owner's representative services provided by Tegra. Site investigation costs really are for soil investigations and survey work that was necessary for the project to proceed. The off-site improvements, that relates to the some of the sanitary sewer work that Mark mentioned. That contract is on your list of projects or contracts to approve, I believe, tonight. That the costs incurred so far would relate to the engineering associated with those sanitary sewer improvements off-site. The large number there, the $2 million figure, is comprised primarily of architectural and engineering fees. Mark had a copy of the drawings in here last week, the design development drawing, or last month, excuse me. Those don't come cheap. It costs a lot of money to have a building like this designed, and you can see the costs that we've incurred to date. There are a small amount of legal fees included in those professional fees, but that's primarily for architectural and engineering services. And as you might expect, very little in the way of construction at this point, but with construction starting in the very near future, you can expect to see that number grow significantly over the months to come. So you can see we've, through the end of May, we've expended about $2.3 million, which leaves remaining funds of about $112.7 million. So that concludes the presentation for today. Next month's update will be on July 10th. And as you can see, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening on the project. Things continue to proceed, and on both the construction aspects of the project as well as the other contractual elements looking down the road for when it is completed. So with that, I know the team stands ready today to address any questions you have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tracy, and all the presenters. Lots of work involved with that. We appreciate your insights. Questions from council members? Councillor Jameson.
Thank you. A question for Tracy, if I could, right away. It was always my understanding that we needed to have enough money in the bank to complete a project. Obviously, we're not borrowing that other $12.5 million till, like you, I think, alluded to later in the year. Is that just a misconception of mine that, I mean, because in all reality, it could fail when, or is there another vote by the council to authorize that bond sale?
No, the bonds to be sold yet have already been authorized by the council. The initial bond ordinance that was adopted by the council back in December authorized raising $115 million for the project.
Very good, thank you. I was a little confused. And the second question is for Mike Cooper. Mike, what happens if on July 11th, when it goes in front of the Planning Commission to get final approval, and I guess you do need to get a building permit, what if the Planning Commission says it's not a good enough plan?
Oh, then I'm in really big trouble. No, the way that ordinance is set up is the final development plan is really not a pass or fail type item. The use is allowed in that zoning district, and it meets all the city requirements. And really what it's doing is it's giving final approval to the building placement, the parking, all those improvements that we're working on through this process. So the final development plan, again, you could say, well, what would happen if they would not approve it? A final development plan, to my knowledge, has never been denied as long as it meets all the city requirements, and this certainly will. This will actually exceed the city standards that we've used for other type of development. So that likelihood is really, I would say, zero.
I hate to even lead into that one, but it is, if for instance, they say there isn't enough parking, we can revert to our ordinance that says in a planned development district, it actually lays this out, so they're only going to follow those rules.
And we've done that already through the Planning Commission and through the City Council. We actually amended that planned development district to provide for the event center building.
So it's really
so
just
that's already in place.
It's just a formality to
Yes.
go through. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, and the nice thing about it is that we're going to have Coke Hazard actually present the item. It's really a good chance for the community, if they're interested, and I hope they are, to really give them a better idea of what the building is going to look like and how it's going to fit out there on the site. So we see that as really kind of a public education process as much as anything else.
Thank you. Councilor Staggers.
Yes, I have a question for Tracy and then Darren. Darren mentioned the small sum of $22,500. Is that in this project financials, or is that from somewhere else?
Those dollars have not been expended yet. That contract was just recently entered into. So the answer to the first part of that question is no, that is not included in the financials. It will be in the future.
Okay, so that's going to be part of the $115 million for
That's
the bill.
correct.
Okay. Darren, with this Legion sales and marketing, just to clarify, they're going to help us with the naming of the different facilities. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, I'll read exactly for you. They will provide title sponsor naming rights review, negotiation, and agreement construction services for the event center and possibly all three buildings if we feel there are opportunities there.
I remember several months ago, did we spend $64,000?
Yes, it was actually a year ago now already. That was something similar, I should say something related, not necessarily similar. We hired a professional firm, not unlike Legend Sales and Marketing, to do an evaluation for us in this process of the marketability of a proposed facility. That was before, of course, the voters opted to support the project. And so they looked at a number of things, what the potential marketability and value could be for title sponsor naming rights for premium seating, including suites, loge box seating, club seats, all kinds of other also significant sponsorship opportunities inside the building, entryways, concourses, those types of things. So that was to evaluate. This will be, now that we have a project that will be constructed, this will be to work with us to actually sell the building. All those things I just mentioned and probably more.
Okay, I guess probably a lot of people thought that that other company was also going to help us sell. I mean, if they're evaluating, I mean, they have a lot of knowledge about our situation, and that would, one would think would be the company to have, since they've already done the evaluation and everything. So I guess I'm still wondering, why are we going with another company now?
Yeah, good question, but they are two separate processes. We elected at some point to have an open competition to select this. We just felt like that was in the best interest of this project and taxpayers. We get one opportunity to sell this really once in a generation facility. And we wanted to do the absolute best we could and hire those who were the best, we felt. So we had an open competition, and that's the one that I referred to earlier, Councilor Rolfing, and he can certainly give his opinion as well on that process. But it was an open, competitive process. The firm that did the evaluation initially for us did compete in that process, but ultimately the committee selected, and I might add unanimously, Legend Sales and Marketing.
Okay, thank you,
Councilor
Councilor
if I can just ask,
I'm going to open it up to other councilors.
Well,
We've had four
this is
questions in a row.
just a
Finish,
quick question. Yes, I mean, this is dealing with the
I
naming
understand that,
rights.
but only one other councilor's had an opportunity to ask questions, so please finish.
Okay. I guess you've already agreed we're having Legend Sales and Marketing. Okay, so we have a rough idea how much we're going to be spending. We don't have a precise, but rough. And what's that rough idea we're going to be spending?
We have an exact amount for title sponsor. Now, again, this is an abbreviated agreement for $22,500 for approximately 60 days of work to help us successfully complete the title sponsor naming rights process, which we believe can be done in that period of time. So we have an exact amount. Now, not to confuse that with the next agreement, and that's the long-term agreement that we will be bringing for your consideration and approval with Legends. That will be for the next 2+ years, and that will be to sell everything else in the building and possibly in those other two buildings as well to maximize the return on this significant public investment. and to look for every opportunity possible to get private dollars involved in those facilities and in this project.
So I got to get the question answered.
Sure.
Okay, so we had the 2-year contract. So we know, we don't have all the details yet, but we know how much that's going to be. How much is that going to be?
Well, no, we're going to be negotiating that soon. That's something that we're going to start negotiating with them very soon. So they did submit a proposal, and we interviewed them. They made a presentation, and so now we will begin negotiations. And I'm not going to talk in great detail about that because we're going to be negotiating, and we want to get the best deal again for the taxpayers with that deal. But that will be coming once again for your consideration and approval for a contract of that length and that size.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up for other councilors. Any other councilors have questions? Councilor Rolfing.
I guess I don't have a question if I can, but I can. I sat on that committee, Councilor Staggers, and by far the Legends were the #1 choice of the committee, by far, and their package that they brought to us was very, very good. I guess would be the best way to put it, and they were willing to negotiate from there also down. And so right now we're in that position, and that's where we want to. That's where we want to be. We want to negotiate, and that's what we have to do. And so I would ask you to just wait for that to happen, and then take a look at the package when it comes. Okay.
Other questions from council? Okay, circling back, second round, Councilor Staggers, if you have any, like one follow-up question, we're running kind of late, but if you have anything else you needed to ask.
Well, let's see here. I guess, Mike, you mentioned that there's going to be a meeting on June 21st with the neighborhood. And you mentioned you're going to be talking about development opportunities to the neighborhood. Is that right?
Yes, that's one topic.
I was just wondering, these development opportunities, does it include actually their neighborhood? That there might be some things done in their neighborhood?
In the neighborhood per se?
Yes.
Probably not. We did meet initially with the West Sioux neighborhood some time ago, and what we heard is that they pretty much like things the way they are. They were concerned about drainage and traffic and noise. They were more concerned about off-site issues as opposed to things within their actual neighborhood itself. The focus that we're going to be talking about in terms of development would be mostly along the Russell Street and Westport Avenue corridors.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for any of the presenters? Mr. Mayor, welcome.
Councilor Bach, if I may, Councilor Staggers, first of all, I want to thank you for your enthusiasm about the project. You're coming on board, and a lot of this is probably hitting you like a whirlwind, and I understand that. Not only is this a different council, but our approach to working with the council is also, I think, different than maybe what you're used to. You certainly have every right to contact any of the folks that have been up here today and anybody else to try to help catch you up on this critical topic for our town. You don't need my permission to contact Mike or Darren or David or Tracy or anybody. Contact them directly. They will do their best to try to get that answer to you prior to a meeting like this or after a meeting like this. And so I just wanted to let you know that. Again, I can't imagine how you're trying to catch up on something that we've been talking about now for 2 full years. But we'll certainly do our best to try to help you in that effort.
Great.
Yeah, let me also mention, I have talked to some people already, and I appreciate their assistance.
Thank you.
And this is one of the best things to have happen at an informational. We have presentation of what's going on, and then it spurs questions and things like that. Good interaction.
Thank you, Councilor Staggers.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Staggers, and I appreciate your patience as well as we try to get everyone involved in the conversation. Councilor Jameson.
Not sure who maybe to answer this, but I've heard from others who are concerned about the 2 contracts with SMG and Ovations? Who would be the best to maybe discuss that? If anything, just maybe reiterate to us why that's a benefit and how that's going to work, because I think in the beginning we're all hopeful that potential promoters and others who would come to the area would be just working with one group. And is that still going to be the case? Am I overthinking this?
Well, just to kind of recapitalize what we talked about last time, we currently have management contracts with SMG for the arena and Orpheum Theater. And one of their subcomponents, if you will, is Savor Foods, which does the food and beverage. We have another contract with Global Spectrum to manage the convention center. They have a separate company called Ovations that we contract with for the food and beverage at the convention center. There's also a contract with Ovations for the baseball stadium food service. As we talked about initially doing 2 requests for proposals, our consulting team, as well as others, encouraged us to look at the best value, the best quality that we could get for these facilities going into the future. And so if you limit yourself to just one entity that would provide both services, being managing and the food and beverage, you may not get the best quality or the best service. So that was one reason why we did that. It's not uncommon throughout the industry for that to happen. SMG is the largest company in the nation in terms of managing facilities. They have approximately 250 facilities that they manage around the country. And within those facilities, only about 100 of them include Savor as the food and beverage provider. So we are not the only entity that would be moving forward in that direction. And again, as we looked at the proposals and interviewed the firms, looked at the metrics and everything else, we believe, and the selection committee believed, that to give us the best value, the best quality, that it would work, it will work, and the facility manager will oversee the food and beverage provider. So that's a long answer to your question, but we believe that we can certainly make that work.
Repeat that last line.
The food and beverage, the facility manager, which would be SMG, would oversee Ovation's food and beverage services in all 4 buildings.
What you're saying is SMG is ultimately in charge.
Right. And that's the way the contracts would be written.
And they'll still work with just SMG.
Yes, it'll be a team approach, so that if I'm a event planner or whatever it might be, I don't have to go to 2, 3, or 4 different places to get my event figured out and booked and everything.
And just if I could, one of the other comments that comes up is if Ovations is following the instructions of their competitor, SMG, essentially, Ovations being a part of Global, if they're following the instructions of another management company.
Well, another thing that you'll see as we bring these contracts forward is that the direction that we want to move with these is that they're going to be performance-based contracts. So the big revenue source for these facilities is going to be the food and beverage. So Ovations is going to do whatever they can to maximize the use of the facilities, provide the best quality food, to maximize the consumption of food and beverages. Because if they do that, it's going to increase their bottom line as well. Okay. And the facility manager is going to want to maximize the use of the facilities. So to do that, they're also going to want to make sure that the food and beverage service is excellent. So it's all going to work together as one big happy family.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Councilor Anderson, question.
Not a question, but a comment back to Councilman Jameson. As we discussed last week, I did send out an email requesting information on how that is going to work and how the committee came to their final decision so that the council could look at that also.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to the administration for your help in keeping us posted on this big information. Any other business for this particular meeting? We will adjourn this meeting in 15 minutes. It will be time for the Public Services Committee. We have a technical issue that's going to require 15 minutes. So I'll adjourn this meeting now. Thank you.
What's that? No kidding. Oh, I got.